Hey, Illinois fans, this is Doug Bouchon. This is the Orange and Blue News podcast. You don't see us around very often, but every once in a while we jump in with a podcast when we have a special guest. And today we have Scott Richey, college basketball writer, college football writer, jack of all trades from the Champaign News-Gazette, one of the beat writers on the Illinois beat that we really trust. His opinion, he sees the team a lot, writes about the team every day in the News-Gazette, and check it out online and in the home edition. But Scott, thanks for coming on. Seems like we go through this ritual every spring now with roster rebuilding for the college basketball programs. Same thing with Illinois, and Brad Underwood is getting pretty skilled at this. I think the fans go through some anxiety every March and every April, but it seems to turn out okay. And with the NIL packages that he can put together with the Icon Collective, what they have to offer on in the transfer portal, and they seem to have a roster that's pretty much set now. The latest addition, Cal transfer Andrei Stojakovic, small forward, high scoring guy. Have you watched a lot of film on him? Thanks for coming on, by the way. Really appreciate it. Have you
Yeah.
watched a lot of film on this kid, and what's he going to bring to the court for the Illini?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me on the podcast. Happy to talk hoops all the time. But yeah, I think Andrei Strakovic was the sort of the piece Illinois didn't have yet, as far as this roster rebuild, with this offseason. Or just, they had addressed some other needs, certainly by, retaining several key players like Kylan Boswell, Tom Slavicevic, got Tommy's brother, Big Z, in the portal, but they didn't have that guy on the wing that could really create for himself. That was a sort of a glaring hole, as the rebuild happened and maybe didn't happen fast enough for the fan base. You talk about some anxiety. I think it was just a lot of anxiety because it seemed like, the portal process moved faster this spring than a year ago, just sort of across the board. And I think it's because a lot of teams were looking as like, we need to spend our money now before there might be some actual rules in place.
Yeah, and part of that is that
So,
they've just figured out how it works, right? And as they figured it all out, the timetable seems to be sped up a little bit.
yeah, and they made a few moves, but I think the Stojakovic piece is maybe the pivotal one. And I did watch some of what he did at Cal, and certainly he played more at Cal than he did as a freshman at Stanford, so his numbers are going to go up anyway. But the level of production sort of outstripped the increase in playing time. He was, maybe not the most efficient three-point shooter. A lot of people think, his dad's Peja Stojakovic. Of course, he's going to come in and be this lights out shooter, and it's not been his biggest strength yet. He's like a 32, 33% three-point shooter um, for his career, but he's really effective getting into the lane, getting to the rim, and really this past season at Cal, getting to the free throw line. I think he got to the line like 100 and like 125 times more at Cal than he did at Stanford. Obviously, Illinois fans have seen guys be effective doing that. Like Terrence Shannon got to the line whenever he wanted to because your choices were either foul him or give up a layup. Now Andrei Stojakovic, not Terrence Shannon, but he's got a versatile offensive skill set with size at 6'7" that he's a weapon on the wing. And like, maybe, the genes will kick in and he'll turn into a three-point shooter like his dad. But uh, even if he doesn't hit that level, he can make some threes. And just, everyone kind of talks about the three-level scorer and like, do you need to be a three-level scorer anymore when it's all layups or threes? But like he can, operate in the mid-range. I think they've got a versatile choice there for maybe when shots aren't falling, he can go create something um, sometimes out of nothing. And he gives you another potential ball handler at 6'7", to take some of the pressure off. Really, the only other two guards on the roster, Colin Boswell and Mihailo Petrovic.
Seems like they always dial in on one guy that they want to bring in to be the alpha. Going back to Terrence Shannon Jr., they got really two alphas last year with Casper's Jonas and Will Riley from the high school ranks after he reclassified to last year's class. Is this kid that kind of player? Can he be the alpha, the go-to guy, the all conference type of guy that can carry the team and go get him a bucket?
I mean, I think so. Like he was like honorable mention all the ACC last year, and you know, probably a couple of reasons for that. One, Cal wasn't very good, so you're not going to get a ton of love even if you put up good numbers. And two, like who among the ACC media, the voters, coaches, like were really paying attention to their new West Coast additions? Like, does anyone care that Cal and Stanford are in the ACC? So like he can be that guy, maybe an all Big Ten caliber player. Um, I don't know that he was. I don't say he wasn't the first choice. I mean, they had some other avenues that they were pursuing. I think he was certainly one of them once he got in the portal, for sure. But yeah, I think he can. He's the kind of scorer they didn't have as they put together this new roster, and it's one that they needed, and the one they eventually went out, paid enough, and got.
Yeah, I think they went after Josh Dix from Iowa pretty hard, and then Dame Sarr, but that relationship seemed to sour a little bit. I don't know why
I mean, I don't know if it
toward the end.
soured so much as just he actually started playing at Barcelona because they had some injuries there, and like he started playing really well in Spain's top league, and you know, more people found out about him. I mean, I think there's still, you know, some college basketball teams is like, obviously there's good players in Europe, but they're not really paying it as much attention as maybe Illinois is, who had a really long-term relationship with Don Mesar, and for a time there, like especially during the late stages of the season, like this is kind of, I don't want to say a sure thing, but like they felt really good about their chances, and then I guess number just went up because he got a little more exposure, and it's like he's pretty good, and there's a little more competition.
Plus, you got to wait for him to make a decision on the NBA draft, so you run into a
Yeah.
little bit of a time crunch if you're going after different guys. So, um, what do you think the determining factors were? I read an ESPN article had some quotes from him, but what do you and they beat out reportedly North Carolina and a possible return to Stanford and then some other offers. But what do you think turned the tide for Illinois?
Yeah, I mean, so, what he had told ESPN, I think it makes sense that they have now a string of bigger guards that they've put the ball in their hands and sort of let them cook a little bit, and they have been successful, looking at and going back as far as like Iota Sumu, who was obviously great for Illinois, but Terrence Shannon, Marcus Damask, Casper Jakatronis, Will Riley, all. I mean, like Io's the shortest of those guys at 6'5", and was closer to maybe being a point guard than the rest of them. But like, it's like let them do what they do best because it was a little different for all of them, and Illinois kind of let them play to their strengths, and they were successful. And I think Andrej Stojakovic, like you see that and be like, maybe I can be the next in that line to maybe really be a featured piece on a good team. And I think that probably had to play some role into it as well because like Stanford his freshman year, not great. Jared House got fired. Cal was not that good. And, making the move to the ACC, which is a bad fit and stupid, but it's the world we live in. So I think, she has to play for a good team. She has to be featured on that good team. And it's hard to say no to that. Plus, Illinois was willing to pony up however much money it took to get him. Because that's part of the process. Maybe the start of the process is like these guys have a number that they're looking for, and teams are either amenable to giving that to them, or the discussion never gets past the money.
Yeah, it's then kind of the elephant in the room, and you hate to ask coaches and you hate to ask the athletes about it because they don't like to talk about it a lot.
No,
But the agents will put the money the dollar amounts out there, and that's probably where those dollar amounts come from is from the agents that are participating in the process. So you don't know if they're maybe slightly elevated or if guys are really getting $3 million a year. But it seems like the Icon Collective is doing a good job. That the donors are willing to pony up quite a bit. And last time we met with Coach Underwood was at the Coaches versus Cancer event. I asked him about the support that he's getting from the donors, and it seems like they are willing to pony up plenty of money for the program.
yeah, and that's I mean not just at Illinois. It seems like there is sort of endless money for college basketball and college football right now. I'm not sure if that's a sustainable model. I don't know if there gets to be a point of donor fatigue where keep going back to these same people year after year. And it's like we need to keep up with the Michigans and the Ohio States and whoever, the Marylands. Um, and we'll see. But for now, Illinois seems to have deep enough pockets to make it work. Some teams, I saw something today, like the Texas football budget for players this year was like somewhere between 30 and $40 million, which is something like good for the players. Get the money while you can. It's it's different. Yeah, and, see if the reports are true, like what Kentucky basketball is planning for its roster next season is north of 20 million, which might be double what Illinois, winds up paying for its roster. And conservatively, they're I don't know, maybe like 8 or 9 right now. It's just sort of a guess because again, like you said, no one really, I mean, knows the real numbers. But yeah, it's part of what college athletics is right now. And Illinois is keeping up enough, and putting together a roster that they think can be competitive in that kind of crazy landscape.
Yeah, like you said, it's not a 1 year proposition. You got to keep going back every year if you want to be consistently competitive. So who knows how long that's going to stick around? But uh, this kid, he was born in Greece, but he's an American kid. His father is from Serbia, but still has those EuroLeague and Balkans connections, and that's something the Illinois is obviously really tapping into. We saw it kind of piecemeal over the last couple of years with one player here, one player there, but now it's a major recruiting territory for Illinois. What's your take on that? What's the appeal to going over there? And it's mostly Jeff Alexander, right, making the trips overseas, logging a lot of flyer mileage and checking these guys out in the Adriatic League and the Euro League. So what do you make of that? I know in the News-Gazette you guys had a story where you talked to previous Illinois players, former Illinois players, and they talked about in-state recruiting and Chicago recruiting versus the international kids. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, well, it's certainly the path Illinois has put themselves on, at least for now. I mean, and it seems maybe that's their zig when the rest of college basketball is zagging to like all in on the portal, and Illinois is obviously making some moves there, but that can get costly in a hurry. I mean, Kentucky adds 6, 7 transfers plus a couple of retention, a couple high-profile freshmen, and you're talking 20 million. And I don't think Illinois is ever going to. I mean, I don't say ever, but they're definitely hitting that number now. I think you can get more value for, or equal value perhaps for less money with some of these Europeans. Like they're not coming over for nothing. Like they're getting paid and getting paid well, but it's not, you don't hear the $3 and $4 million numbers tossed around with those guys. But a lot of it I think is connections they've made. Jeff Alexander for sure. Orlando Antigua's obviously really involved, especially with the Ivasic's, having brought Zvonimir to Kentucky and now helping get him to Champaign. But it's funny you mentioned Stojakovic, obviously with the ties, but like he's the first one from that Balkans group that doesn't have the same agent. Like both the Ivasic twins, David Mirkovic, Mihailo Petrovic, they're all represented by Misko Raznatovic, or at least his agency, and same guy that represents Nikola Jokic. So like the connection is there, and he feels comfortable sending his guys to Illinois as long as the price is right, the role is right. So he's maybe the most well-known just agent like in that area of the world. Represents. I was just looking through some of the lists. Like it feels like he represents every Balkan player like in the world. I mean, it's obviously not true, but like he's got a ton of them with his agency. So they've got that connection. And I think Brad was talking about like how coachable these guys are. Coming over from Europe, and I mean, look at Mihailo Petrovic. Like he's played some level with a professional organization in Serbia since 2019. Like 22-year-old. Obviously, some of that early was with like youth teams, but he's 22. He's an MVP candidate in the Adriatic League, and somehow he's going to play college basketball. I don't know how that works necessarily, but Illinois has found that you can get those guys on a roster, and they're kind of going all in to again, maybe pivot back to having an older, more experienced team, even if that experience is coming from literally every corner of the world.
Yeah, we'll get into that with the returning players. There was definitely a concerted effort to not have a complete roster turnover this year like they did last year, and they're bringing back 6 guys. But kind of the stereotype with the EuroLeague players and the ABA players is very skilled, very coachable, but not necessarily high level athletes. That's not really true with Petrovic, is it? I watch his film. He seems like he's a lot of stop and go quickness, a guy that can really blow by guys with the ball in his hand.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, all I've seen of him is clips and on the internet, and no one's going to put your lowlights out there. But I liked the way he was able to sort of dictate pace and tempo, and like he's just got an interesting change of speed where he can just really turn on the afterburners and get to the rim. Now, I don't know necessarily like the quality of who he's playing against all the time, like how good athletes they are. Is he just fast in a slow league, or is he fast? So I think we'll find out. But there was one game, I saw a couple highlights where he's McKinley Wright, who played at Colorado for, I think he was there 5 years. I think he actually stayed for five. He's in that league now, so that's someone who I had at least a baseline of. Okay, I've seen him play college basketball, and Petrovic, he was kept up with him defensively and beat him a couple times off the dribble. So I think that give me a little better representation of his athleticism. I don't think this Illinois team has a ton of like high-powered athletes. Ty Rodgers probably at the top of that list. So they're not going to blow anyone away with their athleticism, but I think they've got maybe enough. And if they don't have enough, then they've got some crafty veterans that know their game well enough that they can take advantage of different matchups.
Yeah, you watch the Final Four, and I think most of those teams were made up of teams with twitchy guards. Illinois may not have that, but they have obviously some other strengths. Uh, what do you think the older fans there and some of the former players, what their take is on recruiting the state of Illinois and Chicago specifically? We talked about it before I hit record. They're not going back to the Flying Illini days where everybody on the team was homegrown talent. But do you have a sense of where some fans are on taking all the kids from overseas and not really recruiting in their own backyard a little bit?
It's probably mixed. I mean, I think there's some that understand get talent where you can get talent, and maybe it doesn't matter where they're from. There's others that I think the reason the fans were so fond of Merez Johnson was he was from Chicago, and like he was committed for so long, and then obviously only stayed a year, so that sort of maybe soured that fan to player relationship. But like they were able to watch him sort of grow up and develop over the course of a long-term recruitment, and now they're being introduced to David Mirkovic and Mihailo Petrovic like within a matter of a week's time in April. And it's like they don't know who these players are, but eventually they get to the point where the season starts and it's like, okay, these are the Illini, and I think they forget about how they got there. But now you mentioned like you're never going to have an all Illinois team again. Like I suppose there's the slim outside chance that maybe you get even close to that, but I'll never say never. But you look at the state right now, like there's not enough guys to make up a roster that could compete at the top of the Big Ten, which is the expectation for Illinois. I mean, we just published our all-state team, and like there's some good players. Most of the good players in Illinois right now were either freshmen or sophomores this past season. Jackson Davis from Warren was our player of the year. Could have been Davion Thompson, formerly, I guess now Bolingbrook, heading to Link Academy, or Devin Cleveland. Like Cole Kelly at Equa Valley was a freshman. A lot of young guys that are good. You just can't solely recruit Illinois anymore.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of people who cover Illinois basketball recruiting. Scott Burgess from Illinois, hoops. Talked to him a lot, and so many kids leaving to go to prep schools that it just
Yeah.
decimates the in-state prospects. It's not what it once was. So, and I think the fans are not paying as much attention. We cover recruiting, as you know, at Rivals, and fans are not paying nearly as much attention to high school recruiting. It used to be this time of year, everyone was dialed in on the EYBL and the 3SSB
Yeah.
circuit and all the high school recruiting. It just doesn't get the traffic or the attention that it used to.
Well, it's interesting. Like Illinois has a pair of freshmen coming in that they signed in November. Like, but who has mentioned Brandon Lee or Keaton Wagler in the last month? Like, as everyone talks about, like, oh, what might the rotation be? Like maybe Brandon Lee. Like they've got, oh, well, maybe he gets a few minutes here or there. It's like no one is invested at all in freshmen. From the fan base perspective, certainly not. Like they're just more interested in who's next in the portal, what kind of veteran players can we get, and coaches. Now that you can transfer as many, however many times you want, however many years in a row, like you can get older, more experienced players every offseason. And I think that's the preference. I mean, there's obviously going to be some freshmen that come in that are really good. Illinois had two last year, but they're the outliers. Like Illinois never had one and done first round pick ever. They're going to have two in June. And who's to say when they get the next one?
Yeah, and you sign kids with the understanding that it could just be for 1 year, and not just guys going to the NBA. Obviously, guys hitting the portal. So
Yeah. I
you
mean,
just,
Illinois lost a lot of players after one season over the course of this sort of
yeah, we've
new.
made a list of them on the side every now and then. The fans love to list all of them, and it
Yeah.
adds up. But Illinois maybe was happening to Illinois maybe a little bit too much early on in the Underwood era, but now it's everywhere. It's every team. It's happening to everybody, even blue blood programs like Kansas struggling to put together a good roster. So, but you mentioned the two freshmen. This seems like a roster that has a lot more balance than last year with 10 newcomers and Ty Rogers sitting out. It's a combination of new recruits from overseas and the two freshmen and the guys from the portal and returning players. How important do you think it was to bring back some guys this year? I know they invested in it just from a culture standpoint and a continuity standpoint. How important was it to bring back guys like Ty Rogers and obviously Tommy, one of your marquee players?
Yeah. I mean, the additions they've made have been pretty good, but I don't think there was a bigger move in the offseason than bringing back Colin Boswell and Tomislav Ivicic. I mean, there could be two all Big Ten caliber players right there. And then Ty Rogers coming back is surprising just because you don't maybe see a guy that's like redshirt because he's uncertain about his role one season and then actually come back to the same team the next year. But again, like he's been around, like he was a starter for an Elite Eight team. Like he knows what it takes to be that good, to have a season that successful. And I think he's got some positional versatility that really help this team. Like he can play, and it helps him because he can play several different spots and kind of just stack up the minutes at the three or the four. But I think starting over, completely over, is tough. And it might not be until January where you get things figured out, or after, I mean, maybe February until you get it figured out. But if you've got some guys that have been around that sort of know the coaches and what the expectations are, know the system, the onboarding process for the new guys goes a little easier. It's like that was basically all on Ty Rogers and Dre Gibbs Lawhorn last year. The only two guys that came back. And that's tough to get a full team on board. Not that they certainly didn't put in their best effort, but it's just, it's a brand new team. Like they don't have to do as much of that this year. So I think, yeah, retention is huge. I mean, you look at Purdue, like they got their three best players back. That's why they're the Big Ten favorites in April. I mean, that could certainly might change. I don't think it will. I think Purdue's going to be really good, but they got Braden Smith, Trey Kaufman, and Fletcher Lawyer all back. Like that's important.
And Zach Edey part two, right? The
Yeah,
kid
I mean, I think
injured this year.
like Daniel Jacobson, like if he would have been healthy last year, I think Purdue would have been even better than they wound up being because like Trey Kaufman-Renn was it in the front court essentially. Now that they've got him, they got a really good transfer, I think, in Oscar Clough. Like I don't know, Matt Painter continues to be pretty good at what he does.
Now that we're talking about the Big Ten, I thought coming into the offseason, Illinois needed to get bigger, which they did. They needed to add some shooting, and I thought they needed to get more athletic. I don't know if they've done that or not, but how do you think that this roster? We won't know till we watch them, obviously. But how do you think they stack up? How competitive do you think they'll be nationally and in the Big Ten?
I think right now I've got them. I got Purdue one, and then Illinois, UCLA, Michigan in some order after them. And Michigan, that's sort of a little reliant on if Yaxel Lindenborg actually lines up in Ann Arbor, or if he just goes through the draft process and actually gets drafted. If he does, I think that's a sort of a big blow for them. I mean, Illinois is right there, top five team certainly in the Big Ten, and yeah, they've got interesting pieces, and I think beyond the size or the shooting, which we'll see. I mean, Brad Underwood thought he had an elite shooting team last year, and they were bad. I think is just probably the fairest way to put it. The fact that they're older, I think that makes a lot of difference. Um, Kevin Shakachonis, really good player. He's 18, and I think you saw some 18-year-old come out in him. Will Riley is 19, um, kind of the same deal. Like it took him time to
Once
figure
he
out.
once he figured it out, he really got rolling.
Yeah, it's just that was February.
Yeah.
So I think they head into the season on maybe at a stronger point, just because they've got old guys. I mean, and it's funny, like Colin Boswell is among the youngest, but I mean, he's got 3 full years of college basketball experience under his belt. I mean, so uh, I think that maybe more than anything is going to help them. And then because they're older, they have that experience, then the size and the shooting, and I don't think they did a ton to address athleticism, but maybe a little. That'll sort of work itself out.
Depends on matchups too. But it seems like the portal world and the NIL world is kind of shaking things up. You get some veteran coaches that decide to hang it up, and retire, and it seems like a new crop of coaches that are emerging are a little bit better at doing the AAU or the JUCO thing and just putting a team together over the summer and being competitive. How much do you think it's shaking up the hierarchy of college basketball? The new world that we live in.
I mean, you're right. Like the older guys, I mean, the legends of the sport are maybe hanging it up ahead of when they would have otherwise. Um, but then you've got 61-year-old Brad Underwood who seems to embrace it, and he just talked about it a lot. It's like that it does remind him of his JUCO days, and like you don't see it a ton of coaches at his level in terms of coaching a power conference team that were JUCO head coaches in their past. A lot of them just went from you know assistant coaches at the D1 level to head coaches at the D1 level. Different paths certainly for all of them, but like Brad had a unique path, I think, among Big Ten coaches. So yeah, he's embraced it. Others maybe have not. Even guys younger than him. I mean, Tony Bennett at Virginia, sort of a surprising retirement, I guess, before the start of last season. Just right before the start of last season. But yeah, it's you've got to be flexible. Um, you got to be willing to adapt. I don't know that high level coaches necessarily are always built from that mold. Um, that some have, they do things the way they do them, and that's that, and they're not entirely willing to change. Brad Underwood is. I mean, look at the way he's approached roster building, the way he's approached his offense year to year, tweaking it to fit his team. We'll see if they tweak defense to be better, because it's not been their biggest strength necessarily. But Yeah, he's.
Understatement. So
I mean, they had stretches where they're fine defensively last year. Overall, not great. But yeah, he's willing to do what's necessary, I think, in this new era of college basketball, and I think Illinois fans should probably feel pretty good about that.
probably one of the most surprising things about Brad Underwood. And you think old school coach just with personality and coaching style and how he goes about his business, but he really did. I mean, early on, he completely got rid of the. I don't know if you'd call it havoc or not, but the constant ball pressure and trying to turn teams over to going back to a more of a traditional type of defense. And now they're all in on the NBA, spread the floor, 4 and 5 out kind of offense, take threes and shots at the basket. So
Yeah, I mean, he completely dumped spread, and like that was all they
yes,
ran early in his tenure.
spread motion type of stuff. Yeah. How much do you think that is influenced by the younger guys on the staff, like Tyler Underwood and uh, Zach? Seems like they're in his ear a lot, and that they know quite a bit about trends in college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, they're the de facto coordinators as the on staff, Tyler on offense and Zach Hammer on defense. But yeah, I mean, and I think that fans have problems with that sometimes with the two young guys, maybe being in those roles. But I don't know if it's forgotten that like Brett Underwood is the head coach, and if he didn't want to do it that way, they wouldn't do it that way. Like, but I mean, they've bought in certainly offensively to what everyone in the NBA is doing. I mean, just sort of made it a new thing as like go with some of my buddies over to Indianapolis and watch the Pacers because it's close and cheaper than going to a Bulls game. And like what I see there is what Illinois does offensively. It's just let's shoot as many threes as we can. If we make them, great. If we miss them, which they missed an awful lot of them last year, hopefully you get the rebound and get the putback, which they did sometimes well enough. And then really lean in on it's like the two most efficient ways to score are threes because they're worth more, or dunks and layups because you're right at the basket. Makes a lot of sense. It just comes down to execution and execution from guys between the ages of 18 and gosh, I mean now like what Chad Baker Mazar is going to be 26 at USC next year, but uh, typically 18 to 21, 22. Like it's not always going to be perfect. But yeah, they're all in on the at least offensively. I don't. We'll
Yeah,
see what they do defensively. I
guys,
think they have to make changes.
guys are in the NBA for a reason. They can make those shots. Obviously, I always get on the box scores and click on the shot charts because they're fascinating to me. You
Yep.
you have no shots, no 2 point shots, except for at the rim. They're just all bunched up at the rim or beyond the 3 point line. Just about every game, and almost every team plays exactly the same way. You know,
Yeah.
Ant probably takes the most twos of all the star players, just because he can get open off the bounce. But those shot charts are fascinating to me. I don't know
Yeah.
why.
I mean, it's the evolution of what they think successful good basketball is. And I don't mind the mid-range shot. I mean, if you have that ability, like I don't know, shoot them. If you're confident you can make them, if you're shown you can make them, shoot them. Because even I've kind of said this before, but like two is more than zero. And if you're not making your threes, like do something that you know you're gonna make.
Yeah, as long as they're not highly contested. A wide open two is better than a contested three early in the shot clock.
Yeah.
Probably, I think that the analytics people will tell you that it's not how many threes you take; it's how many you make. That
Yeah.
I mean, you can get out your calculator and figure that figure that out. But bottom line for this team, Scott, what do give them a grade, an off season grade? How you think they did? Filling out the roster and do you think they're done, or are they going to add another piece?
I think they'll be open to adding another piece, and it'll all come down to if Brad thinks he needs one more experienced guard because they don't. I mean, that's where they maybe don't have the depth. But I think it's going to be a tough sell to someone that could play at the level that they want to play at. It's like we don't have a huge role to offer with Kylan Boswell and Mihailo Petrovic. You're going to be the third guard, and I mean, could that be Brandon Lee? Sure, maybe. I don't know. Like we'll find out. But if they feel like they need another veteran there, they have the room, certainly roster
And you
wise
don't
to
know
add
how
one.
much resources they have to work with,
Yeah, I mean, so
NIL wise.
I mean, you're gonna have the sell is probably not a I don't know money. I mean, maybe they can come up with a decent NIL package, but I think either gonna get somebody that's chasing that because I don't know if there's a huge role to offer. Um, but if there someone's willing to play a smaller role, sure. Add another veteran guard. Who cares about the freshmen? Maybe they'll transfer anyway. I mean, basically, I don't. Not saying that's what's gonna happen, but that's what happens at every college basketball program across the country now. Grade wise, until they got Stojakovic, I was it was a fine grade, but with him, the piece they really needed, I don't know, like A minus, B plus ish. I mean, I watched the Final Four and saw all of the athletes on the court. I'm not sure I see that on the Illinois roster. This is just the impact athletes. Um, but if a bunch of old guys, or comparatively, um, with skill can make a difference, maybe that is. So it's still good. A minus isn't bad.
All right, sounds good, Scott. We'll tell before we go, why don't you tell everybody how they can read your stuff? I know there's the online version of the News Gazette, and you can still have the paperboy delivered to your door, right?
Yeah, well, it's the U.S. Postal Service does all of our delivery now. But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. I still say Twitter at SR Richey. Um, and our other account is at Illini HQ. Um, but yeah, IlliniHQ.com for all of our Illinois coverage. And of course, I'm always open for people subscribing. You can get just our online coverage. You can get our e-edition, which is, you can read on your Kindle or your phone, or actually subscribe and get an actual newspaper, which I still do enjoy to hold in my hands sometimes. But all that information's to subscribe is available on news-gazette.com, and we will take any and all subscribers.
All right, great job, Scott. Well, thanks so much again for coming on, man.